Hi everyone, it's Norman Kochnick here for Eyes on Cricket with Norman Kochnick. I'm actually in Sydney, Australia, as you know, but I've been obviously following the series between England and India, or India and England, whichever way you'd like to go first, especially the 5 T20 internationals, and the 5th only taking place yesterday. And the English newspapers have gone pretty hard on this and quite applauded, obviously, India's performance in the 5th match, as they have won 3-2 in the series, and on top of that have won against the grain by winning against the toss. That means that England won the toss and elected to bowl, and India were able to come up with a victory having batted first. So some of the headlines I've got are from The Guardian, The Independent, The Daily Mail and The Sun are the 4 examples I've got. And just take, for example, The Guardian. The Guardian, in fact, The Observer from The Guardian says, India clinch T20 series as England falls short in a mammoth run chase. And yes, it was a mammoth run chase. The total of 224 for 2 was quite outstanding, with obviously the likes of Kohli and Rohit Sharma doing particularly well, and Sky Yadav, and ultimately the likes of Hardik Pandya looking fantastic. A magnificent performance. So the 5th is obviously India were 2 for 224 and beating England 8 for 188, which was quite a commendable score, therefore winning by 36 runs. So India win the series 3-2, as I said earlier, after Virat Kohli and Rohit Sharma, in their terms, cut loose, which they certainly did. Tanya Aldred actually writes further. She said, India cruised to victory in the 5th and deciding T20 match, handing England a 36-run thrashing. And it was a thumping or a thrashing, and a rare series defeat for England, which is fairly notable. For 20 glorious overs and on an excellent pitch, India were able to bat much as they liked, basically. That's a good way of putting it. With Virat Kohli, the Flagstaff about which the others billowed extravagantly, and that certainly is the case with clearly Rohit Sharma's 64 and Hardik Pandya's end innings, which was actually the most incredible indeed. It was well over 200 as a strike rate. Quite special indeed. Ben Stokes didn't perform as nearly as well as he could have, which is another thing altogether. This series was extremely productive, he said. I think to play against a strong Indian team in their own conditions was fantastic. So that's Owen Morgan talking on his experiences, and certainly were extremely important for both sides. And by no means was it a test run or an experiment. It was a true series, but I think both teams learned a lot out of it. Now, that was The Guardian. Now, The Independent headlines very, very similarly. Kohli stars as India crush England. So the words crush, thump, defeat are all coming into play, and the final T20 to clinch the series. That's what The Independent actually said. So that was quite a direct heading. Again, it repeats itself with India crush England in the final T20 to clinch the series after Virat Kohli's rapid 80. And it was certainly rapid from all 4 batters that actually had a chance to bat. And again, they do talk a lot about the fact that England suffered a rare setback in T20 cricket. So undoubtedly, England have been in the number 1 or 2 position in world cricket, that is for T20, for some time. So this is a kind of a rare defeat, but I'm afraid it's a defeat against that team that probably is number 1. Owen Morgan's men had lost just 1 of their previous 10 series, also to India in 2018, so that's significant, but were unable to maintain the furious pace that held for the first 30 overs and went down by 36 runs as the hosts sealed a 3-2 scoreline. And that's true. England were able to keep at bay. They were 1 for 130 after some 13 overs, in fact, but they couldn't sustain that long enough. So that's the 2 papers I've talked about. That is The Guardian and The Independent. Now, the 3rd example is the Daily Mail, and that Daily Mail talks very clearly on the heartbreak for England in India as Owen Morgan's side lose the T20 series decider after some brilliant Virat Kohli batting as he hits 80 not out to help the hosts clinch victory in Ahmedabad. Again, they're lauding over Virat Kohli's 80 not out, which it certainly deserves of that, but you can't take away from Rohit Sharma, Hardik Pandya, and even Sky as well. They were all brilliant. So Lawrence Brew talked about the 3-2 defeat in the backyard of the world's 2nd-ranked team is no disgrace, but it was a reminder of the task ahead for Owen Morgan's side as they're able to move into the World Cup stage, and that's exactly right. It was a significant defeat in someone's backyard, that is India's backyard, but don't take away from that. India are certainly going to be hard to beat, and so England are still claiming position of T20 number 1, but I'd say that's been challenged now for sure. So the other article in the Daily Mail was about Jofra Archer, as you would have all heard. He hopes to be fit for the latter stage of the IPL with Rajasthan Royals, despite being forced out of England's one-day series against India with an elbow problem. So his elbow problem is still there. He's been around for most of the series. He's going home, not taking part of the one-day series, but will be back hopefully the latter part of the IPL, which is a blow to both the ODI series and, quite frankly, the IPL series as well. He and Mark Wood were certainly standouts with their bowling. So that's a very significant component. That's the third. So that's again, The Guardian, Independent and Daily Mail had pretty significant statements about how emphatic the win was, or the thumping or the crushing of the victory that India performed on England. The fourth is The Sun. And again, it's back to Jofra Archer. They have a very interesting heading, Joff the pace, as in Joff, as in perhaps off the pace. England pace star Jofra Archer faces a long absence due to chronic elbow injury. So it's a bit more dramatic with the way that the Sun's expressing it, the fact that it's a long absence they're claiming for a chronic elbow injury. So he faces a long absence from cricket after his chronic elbow injury flared up yet again. And that's going to be a problem with him. I think even Mark Wood has a number of flaring type injuries that come up on a regular basis. A lot of soreness. They both suffer. Obviously, it's their bowling action. They're quite distinct with their bowling action, not unlike also Bumrah. Jasprit Bumrah is also in the same boat. His unique bowling style puts extra pressure on his body and hence leads to niggling injuries that become chronic. But also in The Sun, they do talk about, they use the word crumbled in quite emphatic, bold writing, crumbled. England lose the T20 series in India as Malan and Butler star before batting collapse, chasing Kohli's inspired 225. Although 224 was a score they had to chase 225. So we mustn't forget Malan and Butler both played particularly well. And in normal circumstances, when a team gets around the 170 mark, it looked to me like England would be able to chase that down, but 224 was insurmountable. That 36-run victory says all. This is Norman Kochnick for Eyes on Cricket with Norman Kochnick. I hope you enjoy the English newspaper report on the 4 papers I mentioned earlier, which were inclusive of The Guardian, The Independent, The Daily Mail and The Sun. Plenty more out there as well, but they're a pretty good nutshell of the emphatic nature of the victory. Thanks. This is Norman Kochnick for Eyes on Cricket.